The Titans lost to the Colts 23-16, a pretty lackluster performance overall. We're going to break it all down right now. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it. Welcome everyone into a very sad edition of the Music City Audible Podcast, presented by Broadway Sports Media in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver. With me, as always, Justin Melo. And Justin, I don't want to say you called it because we both predicted a Titans win, but you did harp on it pretty hard the last couple episodes, I think, about how the Titans under Mike Vrabel have failed to string together good performances, and Sunday was no exception. They failed to string together a good performance after destroying the Bengals, who looked pretty good yesterday also, but here we are. Titans lose 23-16. What's up?
Yeah, it's exactly as I feared, right? Even you said it, I mean, even when I predicted a win, I think you could hear the doubt in my voice when I said, I'm going to believe that they can do it. I'm going to choose to believe that they could do it. I was skeptical all week. I wrote an article on it for Broadway Sports. Literally, the headline was, can the Titans follow up a good performance with another good performance? And in that article, I was probably very harsh, but I argued that they didn't do it a single time last year in 2022. And again, and I'm going to criticize myself because in my opinion, I kind of think they only played 2 good games last year, right? And that's very harsh for a team that won 7. But I chose to argue that 5-game winning streak was not very impressive, right? All those close, hard-fought victories where they scored 16, 17 points and beat a bunch of bad teams. I think the Colts twice, the Texans, the Raiders. I didn't consider any of those to be good performances. This year, they were 0-1 in such situations, right? Following the Chargers stinker with the Browns stinker. 0-1, small sample size, give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe, again, harsh saying they only played 2 good games last year and they didn't follow up one with the other. But here we are, 0-2 now in such situations. I believe it's a theme. I believe it's a theme that's been going on for more than a year. And, boy, that was really, really ugly on Sunday.
Yeah, Mike Vrabel said something after the game like you can't win one, lose one, win one, lose one in this league because that's how you end up 8-9 or 9-8 and barely in or not in at all, missing the playoffs or limping in by winning a weak division. And that's where the Titans are right now. They're a totally week-to-week team, no consistency, and it's going to be an issue down the stretch. But I go back to what we talked about after the Browns loss. And again, I tweeted something like this, but the Titans are giving me whiplash because after the Browns loss, I was like, time to bench Tannehill. Let's see what we got in the rookies. Not because I think they give the Titans a better chance to win, but just because this is not going to be a Super Bowl season, so you might as well find out what your future looks like now. After last week's game, it was like, oh, hey, maybe we don't need to do that because maybe the Titans can put something together here. Maybe they can go on a little run and improve as the season goes on. And then after yesterday's game, yesterday wasn't like an ass whooping from the Colts. The Titans were just, I think, lackluster is the best way to put it. And if I had to boil this game down to 2 reasons they lost, Kristian Fulton doesn't make my list. We're going to talk about Kristian Fulton in a second and how much he's struggling right now. But the 2 things that really this game boils down to, for me, the red zone offense. They go 1 for 4 in the red zone on Sunday. They're now 1 for 10 in the red zone in their 3 losses combined. So scoring points when you get close to the end zone has got to be a huge priority for this team. And then the other thing is the run defense. Their run defense was putrid on Sunday, the worst we've seen in over 2 years, I think. They've had some moments, even when they were the number 1 run defense all throughout last year and so far through 2023 until Sunday's game, where they gave up big plays, they gave up explosive runs. And even after Zach Moss had that 50-something yard touchdown run, I thought, okay, that's happened before to this run defense, but then they usually tighten up, and keep saying that. It's usually one of those things where they if you take out that one big run, the running back averaged 1.8 yards per carry or something. Well, yesterday was absolutely not the case. Zach Moss ran on them. He had the long run, and then he was churning out solid gains throughout. So the Colts only went 1 for 5 in the red zone. So if you're comparing red zone opportunities, the Titans were 25% touchdown rate. The Colts were 20% touchdown rate. The Colts won by a touchdown. So that's why I don't want to put it all on red zone success. Because the run defense, really, the Colts got the ball back with 8 minutes left in the 4th quarter after the Titans failed to convert that 4th and 1 near the goal line. And the Titans didn't get the ball back until there was 1 minute left in the game. That was the run defense. If they had gotten a stop with 4 minutes left, with 3 minutes left, with 2 minutes left, you feel way better about the Titans' chances. I think 3 or 4 minutes left, you can still run the ball. You can mix in some play action. You don't have to just attack down the field and try to go score in 4 plays, which is essentially what the Titans were left with. So run red zone offense. If they score another touchdown at some point in the game, they're not in the position they're in at the end where they need to get a stop. And then run defense. If they're able to get off the field at some point earlier in that last Colts possession, they had a much better chance to win the game.
I mean, it's so disheartening, right, for a team to get the ball back with 8 minutes left and just essentially run out the entire clock. Like, I saw people complaining about the Titans' final drive, Tannehill's interception. I'm like, it doesn't matter. They got the ball back with a minute and no timeouts. Like, they were never going to go down the field and score. Like,
you have to take those aggressive chances. And if you throw an interception, then whatever, you had already lost the game.
Right. Like, it was that defensive drive. And honestly, though, it placed an appropriate bow on what was a putrid, pathetic effort by the team, by especially the run defense all game long, right? Like, it felt like what they deserved. It felt like what they were working towards. And what's so disheartening about it is, isn't that what the Titans would like to do? Isn't that the identity they would like to have, right? To be a team that's playing with a small lead, 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and try to run out as much clock as you can. And it's so rare they've been on the opposite end of that because they've had such a good run defense. But what a putrid effort. I mean, I'm going to round off some of the numbers. 56-yard touchdown run, yes, but they still totaled 193 yards. I mean, you take away those 56, they're still well over 100, right? They're into the 130s, essentially. So 193 rushing yards. Zach Moss, 23 carries for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns, 7.2 yards per carry. And again, I know it's somewhat inflated by the 56-yard score, but take it away, and he still had a really effective day, right? And
not that inflated.
Right? Like, for real, it doesn't feel like inflated because gaining 5, 6, 7 yards every carry, right. It felt like, right? And let me be clear, and I don't mean any disrespect, but Zach Moss is not a good NFL running back. He's just not. Like, he's off to a good start this year, I get it, but we saw what he was in Buffalo for several years. We saw what he was in Indianapolis last year. Like, he's a 4.2 yard per carry average runner throughout the course of his career. And in my opinion, he's always been a high 3s, a 3.9, 3.8 yard per carry kind of runner. He's a bit of a plotter that does, like, I was shocked he broke away on that 56-yard run. I'm like, are they really not going to catch him from behind? Because it didn't look like he was moving all that quickly. So just a putrid effort. And I want to talk about Tier Tart, how much they seemingly missed him in this game. But it's crazy to me because you feel like even without him, and we haven't really seen them without him for a long stretches, but here you were. But without him, you feel like Jeffrey Simmons is a quality run defender. You feel like Dina Kawatri is a quality run defender. Harold Landry has typically been a good dual threat defender, right? That can rush the passer and stuff the run. And Jack Gibbons is starting not because he's an athletic linebacker that defends the pass, because he's a bit of a two-down plotter that can come downhill and attack gaps, right, and stuff the run at the line of scrimmage. So I love Tier Tart, but I was really shocked at how bad they looked without him.
Yeah, I agree. I can't believe that one player, like I joked with somebody about this yesterday. I didn't realize Tier Tart was the MVP of the defense, and his absence yesterday might be his best argument for a new contract, and a high value new contract that I've seen yet this year.
And I want to put it into perspective a little bit of how they've sort of treated Tier Tart throughout these last couple months, right? It's interesting, right? Okay, look, they did the right thing. They slapped him with a second-round tender, right? As a former UDFA, he didn't have a lot of leverage. You felt like maybe there was a mini holdout there. He switched agents now twice, so he's on his third agent of his young career, Tier Tart, right? No leverage, he ends up signing the second-round tender. He's playing for $4.3 million this year. It's funny to think of now because when they slapped him with that tender, it's like no team's going to pay a second-round pick for a run stopper, right? Or primarily a first, second-down run stopper. He had no leverage. He signed a tender. Well, now he's looking pretty damn underpaid, right? And you feel like they probably want to re-sign him in the offseason. They're going to have a ton of cap space. He's probably worth at least $7-8 million a year, I think you figure at this point. But back on topic of how they've treated him, right? That situation, of course, left a sour taste in his mouth. They did the right thing, right? Business is business. They did what was best for them. Throughout the summer, Terrell Williams, Mike Vrabel, how much did they try to sell to us that he was in a position battle with Jaden Peavy for the starting job? We all bought into that. by the way, we're recording this on Monday. They just cut Jaden Peavy from the practice squad, I think for the second time this year, right? And they've cut him from the 53-man roster. So what comparison was there between Jaden Peavy and Teair Tart, right? Non-existent, none. And the other day, if you listen to Terrell Williams during a press conference, it was out on the field, it sounded like he took a shot at Teair Tart, right? When they asked about Teair Tart's availability, he said, "Oh, I don't know. You got to talk to Mike Vrabel and Tart about that. He's been good when he's been out there, but you got to talk to like." It didn't sound like a ringing endorsement for one of their better defensive line players. Now, look, I'm not going to criticize him too much because I get the impression that all of this is done strategically. I don't know. I'm not saying he is or isn't. Maybe he's difficult. Maybe he's a difficult player to deal with. Maybe he's difficult in the locker room, right? It just seems like they're constantly trying to, I don't want to say berate, but undermine him, right? Like he's in a starting position, a battle with a guy that's not even on the practice squad now, right? A positional battle to start. We're not going to give him the contract that he wants. We're going to talk kind of bad about him, throw shade his way, which again was done just a couple days ago by Terrell Williams. Meanwhile, when they don't have him in there, they're letting guys like Zach Moss run for 170 yards per game. I thought it was very, very interesting observation I've made.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I do think, like, if I had to pick just one of these two things we're talking about, red zone offense versus run defense, I think run defense is the bigger culprit, and it all comes down to the situation that the way this game unfolded and the Colts having that opportunity to run 7 minutes off the clock.
I'm sorry, not to cut you off, but it also comes down to our expectations, in all honesty, right?
I guess so.
We expect the run defense to be really good. None of us are shocked when they only score 16, 17 points and struggle in the red zone, right? So it's like true. The offense deserves some. 16 points isn't going to win you a ton of games in the NFL, right? It's just not. Even with the Titans defense, it's not going to win you a ton of games. So they deserve some blame, and I know you want to assign it for the red zone offense, so we'll get into that. But I do find it interesting how much more upset we are, and generally the whole Titans fan base is at the run defense versus the offense, and it boils down to expectations. That was shocking. The red zone offense struggles are not shocking.
Well, it's also because you can win a game in the NFL going 1 for 4 in the red zone, and the Colts in this game went 1 for 5, as I mentioned. So, like, that is a reason. Like, if you convert in the red zone, you're a lot harder to beat. But if you can't stop the other team when you need the ball back to go get points, and you're down by 4, and then it becomes down by 7 with 1 minute to go, like, that to me is just, it's not just expectation. It's like, if you look around the NFL, plenty of teams won on Sunday with a low red zone conversion rate, but when the defense is also struggling, it's like, if the offense plays well and the defense plays poorly, you can win a football game. If the offense plays poorly but your defense plays well, you can win a game. If the offense can't score points and the defense can't stop anybody, you're never going to win a game. And that's, I feel like, the situation, at least in the fourth quarter, the Titans were in on Sunday. I do want to get a little bit further into the red zone offense struggles here.
Yeah.
Excuse me, because so I look at the Titans offense and it's just, it always comes down to this argument. Is it about the play calling and the plan and the scheme, or is it about execution? And I think we can point to both in this game. The Titans had chances in the red zone. I look at Ryan Tannehill targeting Nick Westbrook-Ikhine in the back of the end zone. Ikhine has a step on his defender, Julius Brents, and underthrows it. Ikhine has no chance to come over. He would have had to do the Nate Washington against Detroit catch from so many years ago to have a shot at that one, or what Chris Moore did essentially a couple weeks ago. To have a chance to catch that ball, he would have had to come through the defender over the top. So an underthrown ball, that's poor execution, right? But I also think about DeAndre Hopkins, who multiple drives, DeAndre Hopkins is the engine of the between the 20s offense, where they're just feeding him between the 20s. He's finding holes in the zone. He's beating man coverage. He gets them down to right near or inside the red zone on multiple drives. DeAndre Hopkins' only red zone target, guess who threw the ball on that play? It wasn't Ryan Tannehill. It was Derrick Henry, right? And that's also an execution example, because that play was there. And I mean, you don't want to like blame Derrick Henry for overthrowing a ball by literally an inch, because that's how far DeAndre Hopkins' foot was out of bounds on that play. But like,
but still, I mean, like they didn't execute it. Like they should. It should have been a touchdown.
Right, exactly. It was drawn up well, it was schemed well, but then it wasn't there. But then I also wonder, like, why are there not more plays designed like as a quick hitter to DeAndre Hopkins, or as a fade route to DeAndre Hopkins, like some sort of some sort of play that takes advantage of his skill set, which is to be physical, to out physical the defense, to have extremely strong hands and body control to be able to make those kinds of catches in the corner of the end zone, even though he barely didn't get his foot down on that Henry pass, the running back pass play. But my point is like that is a little bit of sort of the plan. It's more execution still, I think. And then there's the 4th and 1 play where I've been talking about it on this YouTube channel, on this podcast. You bring all of your heavy personnel in tight to the line of scrimmage. You invite extra defenders. The Titans are in shotgun with 10 out of 11 of their offensive players in between the tackle box. And the Colts respond by completely loading up the defensive line of scrimmage. They had like 8 bodies on the line of scrimmage on that play. And the guy who made the tackle, yes, they ran straight up to Forrest Buckner, which I feel like you never want to do in a crucial 1-yard situation. But the real reason they didn't make that 1 yard that Henry got stopped was because they didn't have enough blockers to account for the Colts defender. The Colts linebacker, Zaire Franklin, runs in untouched and meets Henry in the hole and tackle. Like, is Henry supposed to power his way through a linebacker that runs untouched through the hole and meets him in the backfield? Like, is that the play design? Like, sometimes they draw it up where it's like, just give your running back one man to beat. And usually when you do that, it's a cornerback because you have to make cornerbacks tackle in this league.
Already on the edge, yeah.
But yeah, exactly. This one was like through the B gap or C gap. It was off the right edge there. And just nobody blocked the linebacker because there's so many bodies on the defense there. They didn't have the numbers advantage. So for that one, I'm like, why are you running the ball right at DeForest Buckner out of shotgun from a tight set where you're inviting extra defenders into the box that you can't block? That one really bothered me. I love the decision to go for it on 4th down. And if you look at this game and the ultimate result of this game, this is the Saints game all over again, only slightly different. Because against the Saints, it was 4 minutes to go, down by 1 point, and it was like 4th and 5, 4th and 6. So a little bit different situation. This game, you're down by 4 points. It's 4th and 1, and there's still 8 minutes to go. So if you're wondering why Vrabel is inconsistent with his 4th down decision-making in the red zone, I think there's a lot of factors that are different in this instance. I like the decision to go for it. I hate that play call in that moment against that defense. If you had been running really well all day, if you're getting pushed every time and you're running for 4 or 5 yards a clip with Henry, then yeah, I get it. But you haven't been getting pushed. You have a couple runs that maybe got something more than it looked like they would get. Man, that play call really hurt to watch. And ultimately, that was the last real offensive snap of the game for the Titans because after that, it was the 1 minute drive where they're just trying to get down the field as fast as they can with no timeouts and score a touchdown, not even a field goal. So,
yeah, and I have no problems with the decision either. I think, as you said, because number one, say they kick the field goal in that situation, what changes? Do they get the ball back? I mean, it didn't look like it, right? But based on what we saw on the next Colts drive from there, right, where they took off 8. And think about it, and that drive started backed up. Right, and they still march down the field. Titans kick the field goal, kick off. Colts get the ball at the 25, whatever. Titans aren't touching the ball again, it seems, right? So no problem with the Mike Vrabel decision. On the run play, DeForest Buckner blew up Chris Hubbard, by the way. If you see in the end zone angle, totally blew him up, got initial penetration. But as you said, a poorly designed play, a poorly designed situation, because I feel like you took the words out of my mouth. If you had been running the ball well all day, potentially a different story. But no, you'd been losing the line of scrimmage battle on both sides of the ball all day long, right? And I feel like they overly relied on sort of what their mantra is, right? And that is, we've got the best running back in football in Derrick Henry. Our coach, we've taken on the identity of our coach. We are a physical team that wins the line of scrimmage. When we need to get 1 yard, we can get 1 yard. We're going to get a hat on a hat and get a yard. But as you said, you can't even get a hat on a hat in that play design because you're outnumbered in the box, right? And that's what happened. And as much as I understand that that's their mantra, again, best running back, physical, we're going to get a yard when we need a yard. I think it was that play. Correct me if I'm wrong. You said 10 of 11, right? Tight to the line of scrimmage. Who was the one? You had DeAndre Hopkins on the outside, I believe it was, man coverage, right? One guy out there, I think, right? Was it one guy out there?
I'm going to double check while you're talking. Keep going.
One guy out there. DeAndre Hopkins versus, I think it was Brent. One-on-one. Hopkins has been torching them all day long. What was it? 7, 8 catches, 130, 140 receiving yard, whatever he had.
I'll tell you really quick. Let me stop you there. 8 catches, 140 yards, 53% of the Titans' total receiving yards, and it would be more if you count the passing yards because Tannehill took 1 sack there. He also counted for 40% of the team's total offensive yards by himself. And yes, he is one-on-one. He's not in a very wide split on this alignment, and they also motioned Chris Moore across the line of scrimmage, which brought a defender closer to Hopkins, but yeah, he doesn't even go for a route. He doesn't even block. He just kind of stands there and watches Henry get taken down in the backfield. I'm looking at the play right now. So yeah, I get your point. Like Hopkins has been dominating. Right. Check that play. You see the defense all stacked up right there? Check it to a Hopkins, run to the corner of the end zone, and I'm just going to throw the ball up there and you go make a play, man. Like, yeah, I don't know.
On that 4th down play, that formation, everything I saw, the way the game was unfolding, the way they could. And I said it, didn't I say it before the game at some point? Like, who are their corners? Like, they're going to be relying on who? Jalen Jones and Juju Brents, 2 rookies to cover DeAndre Hopkins. He should have a big game. And he did have a big game. And in that situation, I know you've got Derrick Henry, but the way the game was unfolding, I'm trying to put the ball in DeAndre Hopkins' hands on that 4th and 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look at you. I don't know if you watched the early morning game out here on the West Coast, 6:30 a.m. kickoff for the Jags Bills game. The last play, basically, of the game for the Jags. I know what you're going to say. So Trevor Lawrence comes out. It's like 3rd and 4 with a minute to go, something like that.
I think longer. I think it was a bit longer than that.
3rd and 6. They're in a clock killing situation with a 5-point lead or whatever, and they have a run play called. This is what they said after the game. They have a run play called. They come up to the line of scrimmage, 3rd and 6. Trevor Lawrence sees 0 coverage on the outside with Calvin Ridley, single coverage, man-to-man, and he says, I'm going to check this play. This was all on Trevor Lawrence, checking the play from the run to that pass, throwing it up, trusting his receiver. Calvin Ridley makes a great catch at the sideline, seals the game for the Jags. They went on to score another touchdown, which they didn't need at all. Travis Etienne should have slid down, and they should have run out the clock because in football, you give the other team the ball, there's a chance the Bills score, onside kick score again, which they could have taken away the possibility of. But
they almost came down with the onside kick.
But anyway, the point is there, the quarterback sees something. He sees an advantage with his number 1 receiver. He makes a check and is confident in his guy and delivers a good pass, and his guy makes a play for him. I wish the Titans would do that once in a while, especially, when we talk about how well DeAndre Hopkins played. Do you want to move on and talk about Kristian Fulton here? Because that's the last topic on my mind.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's get into Fulton, and much like the Titans, get out of here.
Yeah, right. So Kristian Fulton targeted 5 times, gave up 4 catches for 82 yards. But really, what was the biggest issue with Fulton was the 2 penalties. And Paul Kuharsky posted a clip from the All-22 of Kristian Fulton tackling a receiver downfield on another play that was not flagged. So could have been 3 penalties. What is wrong with Kristian Fulton? I mean, before we get into what's wrong with him, I want to address a lot of people are wondering how a defensive back can get run over by an offensive player and it be called defensive pass interference. Well, I'm going to tell you how. It was the exact same thing. Remember I brought this up on the pregame show? The freaking A.J. Brown play from the Eagles game last year. And I said, Nick Sirianni saw that. He knows what's up. He ran the same route. It was Alec Pierce, I think, running an out and up. So it's a double move play because you're getting the defensive back to bite down on the out route and then you turn it upfield. It was A.J. Brown in Philadelphia last year running the out and up. Kristian Fulton is over aggressive. He bites on the out fake. And this is why it's defensive pass interference. If Kristian Fulton stays in phase with the receiver and stays with his outside leverage using the sideline to his advantage and doesn't crash hard downhill, when he impedes the receiver's route by running downhill at him or even running sideways into him, because he's out of position, because he fell for the fake, that's going to be a penalty on the defense every single time. I know it looks like, well, what is he supposed to do? The offensive player is running right through him. Well, he's not supposed to run into the path of the offensive player. He's supposed to be in his hip pocket, staying in phase, not biting on a double move. And if you want to know what that looks like, check out my film breakdown from the defensive blitz packages that's posted from last week's game, because Sean Murphy-Bunting defended an out and up against Jamar Chase perfectly. Textbook coverage, doesn't bite on the out route, gets ready to back up and backpedal upfield and turn and run with the receiver in phase and not let them get behind you and not make them run through you, which is a penalty on you because you're out of position. If he was in position and the receiver pushes through him like Chigakonkwo did, which was also the right call, even though it was a little soft, like that's the difference there is the receiver initiating contact or is the defender running into his path and then getting knocked down. So anyway, it was definitely defensive pass interference on Fulton. Why did the Titans not bench him? Because Mike Vrabel said they thought about it. They should have done it. They should have done it sooner. They should have benched him, whether it's to send a message like, you're in a contract year, bro. You're supposed to be our number one corner. And you're consistently getting beat. The one play that I posted a close-up replay of with Michael Pittman running the like in and out sort of like fake slant corner route thing that he did where Fulton completely bites inside despite the fact that he has inside help. Like, bro, play your leverage, use your help, use the sideline to your advantage, and use your inside help. Don't get caught so out of position, and then he's like trying to reach and grab and turn the receiver because he gets beat so bad. Like, why didn't they bench this guy when they had the chance? Because on that last drive, his huge pass interference penalty kept the drive going when it was 3rd and 12, and they had the chance to get off the field. That ruined it for them. And the refs made the right call with the rub route against Indianapolis. They actually missed one of those like 2 plays before that they should have flagged for the rub route offensive pass interference. On the 3rd and 2, they flagged it. It's 3rd and 12. Titans looking to get off the field, and Kristian Fulton commits another penalty downfield, which gives them a huge gain and a fresh set of downs with like 3 or 4 minutes left in the game.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. The one point I wanted to bring up was when Vrabel talked about potentially benching him, he mentioned at halftime, I think, coaching him, right, on the technique and how to handle those situations to not bite, right? And what did he do? It was specifically not just on the penalty, but on the fake slant out route that you mentioned. He bit when he's not supposed to. Yep. He had the inside help, as you said. He bit, got beat again, ignoring the coaching staff's advice, essentially, right? Now, I'm going to paint a bleak picture for you. First of all, have you noticed his dad on Twitter? I think a lot of people have. His dad responded to me. I didn't know it was his dad. Wasn't so bad with me, but I had tweeted, there's like a negative, and I just typed a bunch of numbers. The Titans re-signed Kristian Fulton this offseason. And his dad responded, change of scenery is good. Yeah. And responded to a ton of tweets from Mike Herndon, who was dogging.
Mike said,
Fulton,
leave Kristian Fulton in Indianapolis, and his dad responded, with your mom.
Yeah, leave Indianapolis with look at that. Mike Herndon's mom, hold up. Like, that's just great with Kristian Fulton. That is just a ridiculous thing to say. And all kidding aside, extremely, obviously immature. The parents should always stay out of it. I hate parents who get overly involved in their son's career, daughter's career, whatever. I hate when they get overly involved. But the one that struck me, the reply to me, change of scenery is good. Probably coming from the inside, right? It doesn't sound like Kristian's very excited about being in Tennessee and can't wait for this year to be over. I think both parties can't wait for this year to be over so they can go their separate ways. He's not playing good football right now. I know he was bad against New Orleans, bad against Cleveland. I think this was his worst game of the season by far, right? Based on all the penalties and the big gains and ignoring the goal. Like, it's just, let's call it what it is too. Like, this might be a sentimental point of view, but it's not. It's a guy that's pressing, right? It's a guy who knows he's in a contract year. It reeks of desperation. It's not just a contract year. It's a guy who knows he's not playing well, and he's not in the good graces of the coaching staff, the fan base, yada, yada. He is dying to make a big play, right? He is dying to hope that he's not biting when he's coming inside. He's hoping the quarterback's throwing it so he could pick it off and score a touchdown. How quickly would that get him back in the good graces, especially of the fan base, right? Like, that's what he's hoping for. He's pressing at the cost of technique, right? He's pressing at the cost of his rules, of how he's supposed to be playing, and it's not falling his way, and it's ugly. It's bad to see. Before we get out of here, I'm going to paint a really bleak picture. They don't get better by benching Kristian Fulton. It's the reality of a dire situation. They do not have solutions on this roster that they're going to get better. And you know what really sucks about that? It's the same thing as the offensive tackle conversation that we could have. They have poured lots of resources into the position. Caleb Farley, first-round pick. Roger McCreary, second-round pick. Elijah Molden, top 100 overall pick. Sean Murphy-Bunting on a one-year contract. Like, they've poured resources into the position. They're just not that good. And Roger McCreary's playing well. I really like Roger McCreary. He's having a great sophomore year.
Sean Murphy-Bunting
has been a good player, a good free agency signing. Go ahead.
Elijah Molden was the Titans' highest graded player according to PFF.
He's played well this year. But you know what the other problem is? Like all three of them are kind of miscast on the boundary, right?
Yeah.
Like you need like you're gonna put Roger McCreary out there. As much as I love Roger McCreary, you're gonna have 5'11", whatever, 30-inch armed Roger McCreary against 6'4" Michael Pittman. Reality situation. That's why they got Kristian Fulton out there.
Or
Pittman's going to dominate at the catch point.
Or do you put Trey Avery in, who gave up 100 yards by himself to the Chargers the last time he saw the field? Like,
well, exactly. That's my point. Benching him does what? You're probably putting Trey Avery out there because they're not going to put McCreary, Murphy, Bunting, and Molden as that. They'd be the smallest trio of secondary players in the NFL. If they're not going to, you can't do it. You just can't. That's why they got Fulton out there. So the reality is, if they were to do it, it would probably be Trey Avery, who, again, I thought that game too. I thought he battled in that game, the one that you brought up. But the fact of the matter is, he's not good enough where it's going to make a monumental difference. There's still going to be a bad secondary that's going to give up a ton of shit through the air. It's the reality of the situation. So they don't have an in-house solution. Sure, they can bench Kristian Fulton and send a message, but I don't think they're going to get better, or it's going to be very marginally better where it's not even noticeable. So I keep repeating it, but what the reality of the situation is, they need a new number one corner, and they can't get one. They can't even try to get one. Sorry, they've tried multiple times and failed. They can't even try to get one until the offseason, whether it's through the first round of the NFL draft, where they're probably going to be picking a tackle again, based on how things are looking out there, or it's going to be a corner, right? One or the other. Those are the two in-house favorites, and it's two positions they've poured a ton of resources in, and they have failed time and time again at addressing those two positions, and it's a perfect snapshot of where they are as a franchise and why this roster is bad. It's because they keep failing at trying to get good players at positions of need. So this is where they're at. And there's no solution to corner, and there will not be one until the offseason. And this time, you hope they actually hit on it, where they have failed multiple times.
Yeah. Really quickly, last thing I want to talk about on the defensive side of the ball here. Titans missed 5 total tackles in this game. Azeez Al-Shaair missed 2 of them. He also launched himself like a missile into Jeff Simmons' shoulder, and who knows how bad that's going to... Jeff Simmons came back and played through it, but clearly had some sort of stinger going on. Jeffrey Simmons led the team in total pressures with 5. Next highest was Danico Autry with 3. No one else had more than 1. And Travis Gibson had 1 pressure on 6 pass rushing snaps. So this guy needs more pass rushing opportunities. Titans' 5 lowest graded players on defense. Who do you think they were? Who do you think was the worst graded player on defense? It wasn't Kristian Fulton.
I'm going to go with either Arden Key or Harold Landry.
No, neither of those guys were in the bottom 5. Bottom 5 from the worst up. Worst, Jack Gibbons. Second worst, Jaleel Johnson. Third worst, Rashad Weaver. Fourth worst graded player on defense, according to Pro Football Focus, Jeffrey Simmons. Fifth worst, Kristian Fulton. Then Harold Landry, then Arden Key. 5 best graded players, Elijah Molden, Travis Gibson, number 2. Amani Hooker, Danico Autry, Kevin Byard, number 5, and then Roger McCreary. Sean Murphy-Bunting was in the middle, although I don't know how they grade this stuff because he was targeted 6 times, only allowed 3 catches for 24 yards, only allowed 1 yard after catch, and had the most crucial tackle of the game, forcing Michael Pittman Jr. out of bounds before he was able to pick up that first down late there. So I don't know how these PFF grades take him with a grain of salt. Jeffrey Simmons leads the team with 5 pressures, 4th worst graded player. But it was the missed tackles. I mean, the missed tackles are hurting these guys' grades. Jeffrey Simmons, 27.1 tackling grade. That's really, really bad.
All this stuff is somewhat subjective, but now that you've mentioned them, I will say I'm not shocked Jack Gibbons is in there because, again, as I mentioned earlier on this show, he's in there to stop the run. They gave up 200 rushing yards, right? So, and then Jaleel Johnson. I normally don't do this, but I'm just gonna say it, like a bad football player. Like when I saw that they elevated him from the practice squad for this game, I was stunned that they elevated him ahead of Jaden Peavy. And I know we haven't seen a lot from Peavy, and they've now just flat out cut him from the practice squad. But I was surprised that they elevated Jaleel Johnson ahead of Peavy because I thought Johnson was horrible during the preseason this past year. Horrible. And there's a reason he's a veteran journeyman, and he was terrible in this game. And I don't even know the guy's name. Doesn't matter. They just signed a new D tackle to the practice squad as of this recording, a 6-year veteran. That goes to show you what they thought of Jaleel Johnson's performance, because chances are if T.R. Tart misses the next game in London, they're not going to be elevating Jaleel Johnson again. It'll be this guy that they just signed to the practice squad that's a veteran. But I thought Jaleel Johnson was terrible. Why I said Arden Key, I thought was going to be in the bottom five. Maybe I got to watch the all-22. Didn't notice him once. Don't think I noticed him rushing the passer once. And you know what? That was a backup. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One pressure from Key.
Exactly. So I didn't notice that. So I missed one pressure, right? That's what I missed. And who knows how they define that pressure, right? We'd have to see it for ourselves, how much of a pressure it really was. By the way, that was a backup left tackle he was going against, a mid-rounder out of BYU. What's the kid's name? I was a huge fan pre-draft. Pounded the table for the Titans. Blake Freeland, that's who it was. I was a huge fan pre-draft. I think he was a top 70 player for me. I said in my scouting report that I published on BroadwaySportsMedia.com that he's an outstanding fit for outside zone and what the Titans want to run. And I like, not to toot my own horn, but a couple of guys that I really liked throughout the pre-draft process, Josh Downs, Blake Freeland, both had huge games against them. Two players they could really use right now, right? A tackle and a wide receiver. And Blake Freeland, that's very impressive to come in off the bench the way he did. I mean, off the bench, he knew he was starting because the starting left tackle was hurt, but you know what I mean? He's a mid-round tackle starting a game as a rookie, 4th, 5th week of the season against a supposed vaunted Titans defensive line, and he held Arden Key in check all game long. Super impressed with Blake Freeland. They haven't taken these types recently. I've always been surprised. These mid-round, super athletic tackles that are a great fit for what they want to do. I talked about one in Buffalo a couple of years ago. He's doing okay, Spencer Brown. They drafted Dylan Radins that year instead. And I talked about Blake Freeland a lot as well throughout this pre-draft process, and a couple of missed opportunities to get guys that fit their identity in the middle rounds at positions of need. And Arden Key's got to be able to beat Blake Freeland, though, right?
Yeah, he's got to be. And you mentioned that you could use a wide receiver there. The last thing I want to say, shout out to the Titans wide receiving core of DeAndre Hopkins, Nick Westbrook-Akina, and Kyle Phillips, who combined for 9 catches for 149 yards. DeAndre Hopkins had 8 catches for 140 yards. So
you said it.
But the three of them, they combined for 9 for 149. That's pretty good.
They are essentially wasting DeAndre Hopkins, who's still a very good receiver on this team. But I can't help but chuckle and think, God, can you imagine if they didn't sign him?
Oh, my, yeah. The offense would be, I mean, the offense is bad. Imagine how bad it would be.
4 points a game.
Yeah. All right, that will do it for this episode. Anything else you want to say about this game?
No, hopefully people tune in and listen to this. If they don't, we kind of understand, right? You're probably pretty upset at them right now. We did our best. We'll be back later this week to preview the Ravens game. We got a great guest coming on as per usual to help us do that. And hopefully we'll be able to locate some signs of optimism as the Titans get ready to head across the pond.
Yeah. Shout out to Kyle Phillips for making his season debut, 0 catches on 1 target, and almost died on a punt return. I mean, every time this kid returns a punt, it looks like he's taking the biggest hit that the NFL has dealt out for the year. All right, Titans, yes, you mentioned it, in London next week. Kind of weird that they're not traveling till Thursday while the Ravens are traveling on Monday. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite them. We saw how bad the Bills looked after the Jags spent a whole week in London and the Bills traveled on Thursday.
That is weird because, look, I'm not a professional athlete, but let me just add real quickly. As some of you may know, I think we talked about, I went to Portugal earlier this summer. It hasn't even been 2 months since I got home. And I believe the time difference between Portugal and, I guess I can't compare because they're on Central, but it's very similar. The difference that I was dealing with time difference and the time difference the Titans will be dealing with when they get there. And the time difference between Portugal and Toronto at the time was not big at all when I got there. It was 4 hours. And I thought, wow, that's not much at all. I was shocked at how many days, 2-3 days, it took my body to adjust to that time difference. So I think the fact that they're getting there on Thursday is very weird. Again, they're professional athletes. Maybe it doesn't matter. But I would think it'll be at least till Saturday when they're like, oh, shit, like, I'm kind of on London time now. And before they know it, you got to go out there and play a game. I guarantee you that's why the Ravens are traveling early in the week. Give themselves more time to adjust to the time difference. Because I'm telling you, if you've never been to Europe, it is a bitch to adjust to that time difference. So that's why the Ravens are traveling early.
Yeah, Travis Etienne talked about this after the game, and he said something really interesting. I kind of want to read the quote. I know we're supposed to be wrapping up here, but this was like, this is worth reading if I can find it in the next 2 seconds. And if I can't, then we'll just forget about it. Okay, never mind. He said something like, I knew how we felt last week playing in our first game here in London when we still were feeling the jet lag, and the difference this week, I think that gave us a real edge over the Bills, who I knew must have been feeling today how we felt last week. So,
and they've been going there for years, Jackson.
Yeah.
They've been going there for years. So okay, you know what? Then I'm going to rescind all the kind things I said about professional athletes, because I hit the nail on the head. That jet lag, that time difference, it's tough. It's tough to adjust to. So they're getting there on Thursday. If I had to wager a guess, you're probably not, feeling a little bit better until Saturday. And then you got to go out first thing Sunday morning and play that game immediately. So I think the Ravens are the much smarter team here, traveling on the Tuesday. Hopefully we eat our words. We'll see how that game plays out. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to travel on the Thursday.
Yeah, the good news is Whiplash Titans will swing right back around next week and beat the Ravens 30-6 with their first 30-point game in like 100 games or something like that.
It'll be 36-2 Titans.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that does it for this episode. Follow Justin on Twitter at JustinM_NFL. Follow me at Titans Film Room. Make sure you are subscribed to the Music City Audible YouTube channel. We passed 1,000 subscribers. That was our goal from a few weeks ago. I said it on the podcast. That was our goal. We hit 1,000. Next goal is 2,000. We need your help. Get out there, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate everyone who tunes into this show, but especially the people who tune in on YouTube. So check us out there if you're not already. All right, we'll be back later this week to preview the Ravens game in London, and hopefully the Titans can get back on track there. That'll do it. Until then, you guys stay safe out there and tighten up.
A Broadway sports media production.